Hi, everyone. Welcome to Real Siblings. It Ain't Easy, a real estate podcast that just isn't typical. I'm Donna, and that man right there that you can see if you're watching is Eric, and we are the Real Siblings. We're both professional realtors with Keller Williams, and for your reference, he tends to be a little more scripted and I'm a little more extemporaneous, so not sure what you're going to get today. This podcast blends lifestyle together with real estate as we work to communicate, educate, connect, and entertain the listeners. And while the topics vary and our conversations between the two of us do go in many directions, we do work to provide our listeners with insights into the industry, hopefully better equipping you for your next real estate transaction. If you're a regular listener, you know that the last podcast was done by my brother Eric because I had just had a knee replacement. Yes, part deux. This is my second knee replacement. And frankly, drugs and pajamas don't lend themselves well to being coherent shortly after surgery. Well, this week, it's just me. In case you haven't noticed, Eric bears a strong resemblance to Santa Claus. And honestly, he's busy working his other job, bringing joy to kids and parents all around San Antonio. So in this picture here, that happens to be not only Eric, aka Santa Claus, also his lovely wife, Jeannie. So he's not just kissing anybody out there today. Although I like to write and I like to talk, I have to say that doing this alone is way more like a speech and required a lot more preparation than just when we kibitz back and forth and we have a general idea of what we're going to talk about. So bear with me as I hope to bring you some tidbits of wisdom related to the market, to housing, and to lifestyle. I just re-listened to Eric's episode, the one that he posted not too long ago. And I have to say, he might call it rural where he lives, but that man and his wife, they live in the boonies, in my opinion. As kids, we lived about 6 miles out of town, kind of in a smaller town, which meant 6 to 8 minutes from a grocery store. And our dad wouldn't drive back to Fremont if we were out of milk. He would always just say, you can live without milk tonight, and we'll get it the next time we go that direction. As I think of these memories, it makes me laugh, knowing full well Eric drives so many miles to get groceries, and it has to be planned. This likely means that he also has to have a lot of freezer space and visits to Costco where he can get large quantities of non-perishables and things like that he can store. So me, on the other hand, I can get to a Fry's, which is a Kroger brand, Safeway, Albertsons, Sprouts, Whole Foods, Walmart, Natural Grocer, all within about 5 minutes. And I like that. I like that if I forget or need something special, it's easily accessible. And especially with kind of some of those upscale brands where you just never know. I tasted something when I was in Europe last year, and I wonder if they carry it at Whole Foods or something like that. So our older brother, Dan, and his wife lived in town in Manhattan, Kansas for about 30 years. A few years ago, he moved to the country outside of Manhattan near Tuttle Creek State Park. If that means anything to you, then you'll know what I'm talking about. As such, he now has a drive to the office. It's 10 to 15 minutes. He used to go home for lunch every day because he was like less than a mile, I think, from where he worked. Now, I'm going to guess that he takes his lunch with him. He is not likely to go out and buy. And he doesn't drive back and forth to go home. The other thing that's funny about this is that he also now periodically calls me during that drive. Once he gets through the no signal zone that rural America brings to him, we often have this conversation where he'll be like, okay, I'm going to go around that curve and I'm going to lose you right now. And it happens. And then we get back. So every time we choose a place to live, our choices bring consequences, don't they? I've lived in some old homes. The 1868 brick Victorian on Lynn Street in Lindsay, Ohio, that we talk about so often, had one bathroom downstairs. We had windows upstairs that I sometimes held up with a ruler since the ropes that should have worked didn't work anymore. There was no heat upstairs. That's right, Northwest Ohio, and no heat. And single pane windows. Every once in a while, there was ice on the inside of the windows in my bedroom. So guess what? We had electric blankets. Do any of you guys in the Midwest or Northern listeners still use electric blankets? Or do you just pile on the down comforters? Be interested to know. It amuses me that now I've lived in the desert for 23 years and I get cold. I tell people I'm freezing and it's 45 to 50 degrees. Simultaneously, you'll see all the memes online about the fact that you can tell the winter visitors are here when they have their convertible tops down, and the rest of us are bundled up in our long sleeves and our woolen scarves and things like that. So my friends in Ohio and back there have called me a weather wimp at this point. Eventually, my dad put another bathroom upstairs, and it was almost big enough for somebody to turn around in, but not quite. So it was a tiny little sink, little cabinet, and a toilet. But it saved us from having to run downstairs in the middle of the night since everybody's bedrooms were upstairs. When he sold the home in 2001, when Dad sold that home, he was required to put heat in because it was a VA buyer. So they put baseboard heat in, and man, did I feel jilted. Like that whiny kid going, really? Now you do this? Anyway, we make choices wherever we live. We have major wins and major sacrifices. My win might not be yours. I don't want to live on that mountaintop in Pipe Creek, Texas. I love visiting them, and I love the peace and quiet that comes with it and the views off of their back deck. It's beautiful, but it wouldn't be my everyday choice. Eric talked a bit last time about renting versus buying also. Clearly, as realtors, we think that ownership is the best. We know that when you rent, you're helping someone else buy a home. When interest rates have risen and income has not, it's easy to think that you're never going to be able to own. This is when you need to speak to one of our lender partners or financial planner and have a plan. I guarantee the time will come when you can buy. Recently, I had a couple of listings with people who were at a different stage in their life, people who are moving out of the homes they've owned and into rentals. Why? Well, stair steps. Let's just start with that. Too many outdoor steps for someone carrying groceries and parking in a space around and behind her condo. The condo served her well for 30 years, but she's in her 80s and now she needed a single story with easy access. The other was a beautiful home on a cul-de-sac with a great big backyard. It had views of the mountains. It had a wraparound porch, which is really uncommon here in Tucson. And it had too much yard care. So the time came when a senior apartment with amenities and zero extra work on the part of the owner were what made more sense. So life is a journey, and our needs change, right? At this juncture, I want to switch from the lifestyle to the house itself. If I were to ask you right now what you were going to do when you bought your house, you go in, you buy your home, and you're like, we're going to do this, 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 because it needed something or changed. And Eric talked the last time about needs versus wants. So what would you tell me that you were going to do? The reasoning I'm asking this is because we often have the best intentions, and then we just get used to our space and our quirks. So let me tell you about mine. First, I'm going to do a flashback. At our home in Ohio, the big one that I talked about, we had different color carpet. Shag was in at the time. So upstairs, my shag in my bedroom was kind of purple colors. The middle hallway pass-through room was orange, and the boys' room was shades of blue. Mom and Dad had a much prettier blue flowered kind of carpet that was very more Victorian looking. And I got to say, I don't think I've ever seen anything else like it the rest of my life. Over time, of course, the sun coming in, especially the orange one, faded. But I want you to know that carpet was still there in 2001 when my dad sold the house. And we moved in there in, oh, dang, somebody's going to correct me, 73, because I think my older brother Dan only lived there 1 year. So fast forward, it's 2013 in Tucson. And here, first of all, you don't make the flooring different colors. And maybe this is across the country again right now. There's way less carpet than back east. Popcorn ceilings are a no-no. And as realtors, we always suggest that you value in updated kitchens and bathrooms. When I moved in, there were 3 different floorings, all kind of in this great room area that attached to my kitchen. I changed it all. I put in 20-inch square tiles, and they're shades of beige and tan. And we laid them straight rather than on a diagonal for no other reason than it was cheaper. And I had just bought the house with a VA loan with only, not VA, FHA loan with only 3.5% down. So we laid them straight. And then we removed the popcorn ceilings because I wanted that done before I moved in. We added a ceiling fan in the great room and some lights and things like that. And you guys, I painted the whole house one color. It was called shortbread cookie. And the ceiling was called whipped cream, which if you've ever painted really recently, you know there's a million shades of beige and white. So apparently I have a little bit of a food fetish that my paint colors also relate to food or snacks. If you're a friend of mine on Facebook, you know that I had a roof leak a few years ago and I was displaced from my house for 4 months. That meant new lights in the hallway, new bathrooms, and some baseboards being replaced. It also meant repainting where the water damage occurred. And that meant you couldn't just do 2 feet up where the water had soaked in. You had to do the whole wall, right? The kitchen remodel was put on hold. This past year, I did do the kitchen. And like many things during COVID and post-COVID, it took a long time. I kept it mostly neutral for potential resale, but I did a really artsy, fancy backsplash. Spent probably way too much money on the backsplash compared to the kitchen. It's nothing like the subway tile in white that a lot of builders have used recently and are using. And I still need to replace the carpet in the bedrooms. I was going to do that when I moved in. I think then I'll be done. And frankly, I don't want to do the carpet in the bedrooms unless I'm not at home. So for those of you that know I travel a lot, this might be during a 3-week vacation. Anyway, we'll see. Here is what's not visible to the average eye and what I put up with. And when I say this, this is the thing that when we go into our homes and we buy them, we're like, oh, I'll take care of that. I'll take care of that. Well, there's a chip in the tile in my entryway. And I have 0 more pieces of tile to replace it. And if any of you have ever done that, you know that in taking one out, you might break another one. So as an artist, I have paints. I mixed my paints and I painted that little hole to match. Every once in a while it gets touched up, but because it's not flat, it shows the dirt. Dirt gets caught in it. Maybe if and when I sell, someone will comment, but for now, I just live with it. When the water damage occurred, baseboards needed replacing. My townhome was built in 1978. They don't make those baseboards anymore. So we did the next best thing. We got the same curved kind of baseboard, but it's probably a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch bigger than the old ones. We only replaced the ones that we had to. We didn't do them all. Now, I'm going to assume this is not blatantly obvious because nobody has walked into my house in the meantime and gone, oh, why don't those baseboards over there match those baseboards? Partly because they're around the room and there's furniture and things in front of them. But I can tell you, again, if and when I sell, someone will notice that. It's not super obvious. I know it's like that. When my kitchen was done, well, it was crooked. I know those of you that live in old homes, you're so surprised. Imagine that. So the butcher block island piece was straight and the Corian countered piece was straight, but there was a wedge where those met and it wasn't aligned. It was probably 3/8 of an inch on the outside, and then it got up to 1/4 of an inch on the inside. They were talking about caulking it or something or grouting it, and I thought that was going to look really stupid. So I asked the installers to put in a tiny piece of butcher block that would be like wedged into that place and make it look continuous with the countertop. I don't think that anybody would see that unless I told them about it. So now the whole world knows about it. So if you come to my house, you can come look. The doors are also, some of them slightly crooked. By many standards, this happens with settling, and my house is old. You know, as a child that graduated in the 70s, it's hard for me to type that word or to think the word old, especially compared to that house from the 1800s that we originally lived in. I remember when my sister and brother-in-law visited us in Ohio, and they had never had an upstairs in their home. My sister-in-law Janice commented how creaky the stairs were. I didn't remember that. Did we just get used to it? Did we just get used to the fact that there were creaky stairs? And by the way, you guys, out in Tucson, we have slabs under our homes. We don't have the basements. We don't have the give. So it's just very different. And for those of you that remember and might be listening from back home, this was on Miller Street in Fremont, Ohio, right across from the football stadium. Some of you might remember when I lived there. As I wrap this up today, my point in all of it is to say that we make choices. We deal with things or we don't. And every single thing is something that matters to us, either in the structure itself or in the location we choose. Perfection doesn't really exist. As we head into 2024, and per the movie Frozen, into the unknown, some things will always remain. We will choose, we will fix, we will do our best. And in my humble opinion, it's all going to be okay. In a world where there's a lot of bad news, and it always feels exacerbated around the holidays. So you're going to be watching and listening to this sometime, hopefully between Christmas and New Year, if Santa can get it uploaded. I'm going to ask you that you consider listening more, not to me, to your friends, to your neighbors, to your family around you. That you not only listen, but you hear what people say, that you judge less, and that you just know that we all just want to be happy and healthy in our homes. And that those are the places that we choose for us that should be our sanctuaries. So here's to you all in 2024. And now we're going to see if I can do the wrap up that my brother's going to expect. So we thank you for joining, you guys, whoever's listening here today, near and far. And yes, it's a stroll down memory lane for me, and a little bit about our homes and the houses in Lindsay, Ohio, and then a little bit about where Eric lives and I live, and now my brother Dan, I mentioned where he lives. So it's kind of a blend of the two, isn't it? It's a little bit about the lifestyle that we choose, that we create, and a little bit about the homes and why we make the choices we do. So I hope that you'll keep us in mind with your friends and family. And if you have any questions, Eric and I are both reachable clearly on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Eric probably has 10 things in his email that you could contact him by. And if you're in Arizona, specifically the Tucson area, or in South Central Texas near San Antonio, we are both realtors with Keller Williams, and we're here to help you find a place that you can call home and you can work through your quirks and have your lasting memories. If you are anywhere else in the United States, or for that matter, across the world, we are part of extensive networks of realtors, and we're going to be happy to connect you. So until next time, we never get this together. It might be simple. It isn't always easy. And I'm Donna, and Santa there is Eric, and we are real siblings. Thanks for listening.